Well, as we get ready to hear President Trump's address to Congress, I want to thank you all for joining me for our fourth town hall here on Merit TV. Thank you very much. Tonight, I want to hear what you think and what you're feeling about his first 45 days of his second term. Can you believe it's only been 45 days? It's been a whirlwind, to say the least. Would you all agree with that? I mean, a lot's been going on. Tonight, we're here not to take sides, but to have an honest conversation. So please don't hold back, because honest dialogue is how we really understand each other and bring our nation together. But before we get started, I want to introduce someone that I have a deep respect for. He's become a good friend of mine, sometimes an adversary, and he's my co-host tonight. He's the co-founder and host of the Young Turks, the longest-running daily show in internet history, and the Young Turks Network. He is also the best-selling author of Justice is Coming. I'm talking about Cenk Uygur. Cenk is known for his passionate commentary, and he's built a platform, YTY. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, brother.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Now, what I admire most about Cenk is his unwavering commitment to speaking the truth as he sees it, regardless of popularity. And he and I have gotten to know each other. I've been on his show. He's been on mine. Sometimes we argue. Sometimes we agree. But we always finish up being friends, which is what I think needs to happen in this country again, don't you?
Yep, absolutely. So I love to see all of you here. I love that we're all keeping an open mind, open hearts, open minds. That's what TYT and Young Turks is all about. So let's watch together and let's decide for ourselves.
Yeah, so we've got time to talk before this starts, because I wanted to hear from you guys before the president speaks, and then we're going to talk after he speaks, which could be 90 minutes. It could be tomorrow morning. You never know once he gets started. So we wanted to hear, first off, I'm going to ask you some real general questions. Cenk's going to ask you some questions. But first off, how do you think it's been going in terms of what you expected? You had expectations. Maybe they were fears. Maybe they were just excitement. But how do you think it's been going for the first 45 days? Has it been good, bad, indifferent? Are you disappointed, excited? What are your thoughts? Raise your hand, stand up, and I want you to say your first name. Don't say your last name. I don't want people showing up at your house, giving you a raft of trouble. Just your first name and say what you think.
My name is Toby, and for the last 45 days since Trump has been in office, it's been good and bad. I say good because when you look at it foreign policy-wise, he's putting America first on the foreign policy, because why should we give our money to another country to take care of its own? But it's also bad when it comes to... Okay. My name's Toby.
We were just kidding. We don't really give a shit what you think. But you fell for it, didn't you? All right, Toby, go ahead. Say what you have to say.
My name's Toby. It's been going good and bad. I say bad when you look at it from a perspective of people losing their jobs in the government, especially a lot of veterans, because my family, we are 7 generations of military, and a lot of us serve in the government.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. 7 generations. All right.
And then also, it's been going good on the foreign policy-wise, because I'm like, my thing is, when it comes to Ukraine, Europe needs to take care of their house first before they try to come over here and tell us, oh, well, you have to help us with Ukraine. That's not our problem. Because at the end of the day, we have to take care of what's here first before we try to fix somebody else's problem.
All right. All right, I got you. So you're okay with it generally so far?
Generally.
All right, how many of you agree with what he just said? Okay with it generally so far? Raise them real high so we can see them. Okay, all right. Who else has a point of view? Stand up and we'll find you with a microphone. Stand up so we can find you with a microphone.
My name's Jason. I really do not agree with the way the country's going. You know, I have friends that work in D.C. that have been, laid off due to all the workforce cuts. I think on social policy, I don't think it's going great at all due to the demonization of many marginal groups in this country. And then also with Ukraine, I also completely disagree with that because I know that if Russia gets Ukraine, it could only go downhill from there. So I think the 45 days are going great, probably in some regards if you are a Trump supporter, but if you don't support Trump, the wheels are falling off. So,
Like what is falling off?
I just think in regards to both civility in the country, I think it's going downhill. I think it's been going downhill. And then I also just think government-wise, with all the Doge cuts, are really just cutting randomly. And a lot of programs have been cut that Elon then goes, oops, we have to put this back now. But those programs, if you actually were smart about what you're cutting, should have never been cut accidentally in the first place.
Yeah, what do you think about that? What do you think about Doge?
Yeah, so I'm curious what you guys think about Doge, too. Before I answer, can I ask you guys, a lot of you raised your hands when you said the first 45 days is going okay. How about the Doge cuts? How many are in favor of the Doge cuts so far as they're going? Okay. A little bit less, but a lot of people overall seem to like it, at least in this crowd. So for me, I think...
What does that mean?
What do you mean?
At least in this crowd.
Yeah, well, I mean...
You bring that California
No,
in
I'll tell you exactly what I mean. And let's note for the record that it took me a while to get up on this chair. Okay, so on the polling, Dr. Phil, the polling, whether you believe it or not, and oftentimes if you're on the wrong side of the polling, you don't believe it. And if you're on the right side of it, you do believe it. They're saying that they're less favorable to the Doge cuts than they are to Trump overall. And so to your question to me, look, as you and I have talked about a little bit before, including on Merit Street TV earlier today, he's taking a machete when I think he should be taking a scalpel. So I'm against waste, fraud, and abuse. We've been against it for 20 straight years. You can't stand it. Subsidies going out the door, usually to the donor class, whoever donates to Democrats or Republicans, they get it back tenfold, 100-fold, et cetera. But if we're cutting before we even see what we're cutting, then by definition to me, it can't be the right cuts. Whereas if you said to me, hey, I looked at it for 3 months, 6 months, et cetera, and here's fraud, here's abuse, here's waste, then I think we're all going to be on board. But when they cut right from the beginning and they cut veterans and they cut people that just came in, people go, well, that's not necessarily what I bargained for.
How many of you agree with that these are just blind cuts that are being made? How many of you think, no, they're not blind cuts, they're actually looking at it before they do it? So you're about split on that. Here's the thing. We all agree with what you just said, that we don't like fraud, we don't like waste, there's just bloat, fat in government. We all agree with that, right? Nobody disagrees with that. Everybody agree that is fat? Okay. And I raised my hand when I said I like Doge, and I've been calling them out on some of the stuff that they're doing, but at least somebody is stepping up and making it an intentional. I mean, a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans alike, a lot of them go, yeah, but at least somebody is intentionally stepping up and saying, I'm cutting this. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to find $2 trillion and cut it. Now, I've also said if you make a mistake, if you cut something like with veterans, or you cut things with the elderly who need medications or whatever, then and you find that, you need to put it back that day. You don't need to say, okay, well, we'll study this for 60 days. No, you put it back right now. But at least somebody's intentionally going at it, and that I like.
Well, as usual, we're going to agree and disagree. Okay, so the part that I agree with you on is, look, as a Democrat, I'm super frustrated whenever Democrats get into office and they go, there's nothing we can do. Well, then, brother, why do we elect you, right? So don't tell me about the filibuster. Don't tell me about the parliamentarian. Just do your job. So if the Democrats pass their agenda, their giant chunks of their agenda are actually very popular. Paid family leave, universal health care is actually popular, higher wages, et cetera, right? So when I see Trump taking action, I'm a little envious of how much action he's taking. Even though I might not agree with the action that he's taking, at least I get that he's putting energy behind it. So there I agree with you.
Having trouble taking your business to the next level? Financial Yield Solutions, Inc., or FYSI for short, provides tailored solutions for businesses generating 1 to 10 million annually. For tax planning, advertising, and retirement strategies to scaling operations, FYSI helps businesses thrive with $500 billion raised for AI tech under the Trump administration. Businesses cannot afford to be left behind. FYSI can even help you explore AI integration to cut costs and boost profits. With over 14 years of experience, FYSI specializes in solving the exact challenges business owners face. Business owners can book a free business review today to transform their operations, boost profits, and secure their financial future. Visit FYSI.com/Dr. Phil or call 800-877-4000. That's FYSI.com/Dr. Phil or call 800-877-4000. Getting quality sleep can be a struggle. Beyond feeling tired, poor sleep affects focus at work, patience with loved ones, and leaves you constantly drained. Finding a solution is key. That's where Beam's Dream Powder comes in. This healthy hot cocoa has completely transformed sleep for many. With flavors like cinnamon cocoa, sea salt caramel, and brownie batter, each serving is only 15 calories and 0 grams of sugar. Guilt-free and effective. Dream's all-natural ingredients help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up feeling refreshed. It's easy to add to a nighttime routine. Just mix it with hot water or milk before bed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off.
Guys, this is all in prelude to a $4.5 trillion tax cut. So they're going to say, oh, don't worry, we cut this and we cut that so we can afford the $4.5 trillion tax cut. But we can't afford the $4.5 trillion tax cut. And I will tell you this, I will believe that they're really cutting waste, fraud, and abuse the minute they cut a donor program. Okay, show me an oil subsidy that you cut, show me something you cut from the drug companies, something that you cut from the bankers, subsidy they shouldn't have gotten, or fraud that they should have been caught on at the Pentagon with the defense contractors, et cetera. Then I'll say, okay, that brother is cutting waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah. Well, I always hear about this, the rich don't pay taxes. So one of these days I'm going to get rich. Because I damn sure pay taxes. I promise you, I pay a lot of taxes. And I don't know where this tax cut's going to go. They say this is going to be a billionaire tax cut. Is that the deal?
So
I thought they didn't pay taxes anyway.
So it depends. And so actually, you're onto something that's important. So corporations have constantly had their taxes cut, but that's got to go somewhere. So when they cut corporate taxes, they're usually going to then put that on you, Dr. Phil, and a lot of people in the audience. And so, and I've seen an early part of the plan. We'll see what their actual details are. But some of the taxes on the middle class actually go up instead of down. So we'll see if they do that. If they do, that'll be trouble, right? So, and do we care about balancing the budget or don't we care about it? Because you can't just say, I want to balance it by cutting malaria programs in Africa and I want to cut this and that. But then, hey, and here's a thing. I mean, you talked about cutting Ukraine and saying, hey, why are we paying for their wars? But we're constantly paying for Israel. Okay, and that's another giant donor class, right? You cut anything that's a donor class, that means you're real. When you're cutting from the average person, the middle class, then I got a problem with it.
Yeah, they're not going to cut any oil or pharma. They're not going to cut anything
I would.
there. Well, yeah, of course, as would I, but they're not going to. Okay, do y'all have any questions? Anybody want to ask anything? You already said something. We heard one, then we didn't hear one. Now you want to say something else? Hang on. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Let's get the women involved here. Say your name, first name.
Deetra.
Deetra?
Good evening, Deetra. Yes, sir, you're my mentor, as a matter of fact, in counseling. But what I want to address is the fact that the country is so divided. This adds to the division that's taking place. And no one's addressing that. How can I come to work Monday and lose my job on Tuesday? No one's concerned about what's happening with our people, with our America. America, seems like the whole United States is being discombobulated, just broken up. And no one's addressing that at all. We do want to have not fraud, waste, and abuse. We don't want that happening. But when you talk about veterans like me, senior citizens, you're not being compassionate and caring. And that's not what this country has been built on before.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think anytime I've been an employer all my life. I think the last job I had was in high school when I worked for Hallmark Cards in Kansas City. They gave me a job 131 feet underground in a warehouse. And it's a good job, actually. I probably should have stayed with that. But anytime that I have to let somebody go or whatever, I really do stop and think, this is a human being that's going to have to go home and tell their family, hey, we don't have a job. They're going to have to say, you know, that trip we were going to take, can't do that. Or that cheerleader uniform you were going to buy, you're going to have to hold off on that. I really think about that every single time. And people will say that an employer doesn't or whatever, but anybody that cares does. But there's another side to that. We have people in the government that haven't been showing up that have second jobs. I mean, they've been seriously have a whole, I don't mean like they're fixing bicycle flats on the weekend. They got another career. They're working at General Motors and the United States government. And that's probably a small percentage, but we have a lot of people that don't show up and they're not putting in 40 hours or 50 hours a week. And that's waste and fraud. And those people are going to get swept out. But for someone that's actually putting in the time and working and a veteran, there has to be some kind of way to equal that out. And I think there have been a lot of buyouts, haven't there been?
There have, and so buyouts are justified because they're making the decision to take that money and retire, no problem. If you find the people that are doing the two jobs, and I believe there are, I think Dr. Phil's right about that, no problem, obviously get them out. But you're right that when we cut for the people that came in the last 18 months, we're not asking that question. And they don't have a second job, they barely got this job, as far as we know, right? So in terms of how to bring the country together, number one, that's what we're trying here tonight, right? So, and we're having an honest conversation. You know, where credit is due, and by the way, discredit where discredit is due, right? And I actually have an ironic way to bring the country together, which is to yell at both sides. Okay, so because in order to get to change, and this is again where I think Trump and Dr. Phil, et cetera, are right in what he mentioned earlier, which is sometimes we got to rock the boat a little bit, right? And the status quo is not working for us. And that's what the Democratic Party is not understanding. Like, so when they keep running on status quo, that's a losing message because we're having a lot of trouble with the status quo, right? And so, but in order to get beyond the status quo, yeah, we're gonna have to rock that boat and it's gonna get uncomfortable for some people. But what we want is uncomfortable for the right people, not the wrong people, right? Uncomfortable for the donors, uncomfortable for the people that are rigging the system, uncomfortable for the people doing waste, fraud, and abuse, but not uncomfortable for the guy who just moved his family to Kansas and thought he was getting a job with the government and was really psyched about it and had bought a house, and now all of a sudden the rug is pulled out. Let's do better. Let's do better in figuring. But once you got the bad guys, I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. Let's go get them, right? So we got to do that to get you a better situation.
Speaking about bad guys, how do you feel this administration is doing on immigration? Good, bad, indifferent? If you think they're doing a good job, raise your hand. If you think they're doing a good job, raise your hand. If you think, no, they're not doing a good job, raise your hand. Okay, stand up and tell me your name. We'll get you a microphone. Why are they not doing a good job?
My name is Danny, and I have a problem with a birthright citizen being deported. If a birthright citizen can be deported from this country. There is no one in this audience that cannot be deported with a stroke of a pen.
Okay, and so by birthright citizen, you mean somebody was born here no matter where their parents from?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel like the focus, and y'all probably know I've worked a lot with Tom Homan. He's going to join us tonight by Zoom. He's going to call in. You can say something to him if you want to. And he'll fight you on it if he disagrees. He's a sweet guy, actually. But he believes in what he believes. But his philosophy has been the worst first. Let's get the criminals off the street. Let's get the pedophiles, the drug dealers, the murderers, the gang members, the bad actors. Let's get them off the streets first. And I know that's what they're working on because I've been in with them. I've been embedded with them, on the streets with them. And I know that's who they're going after. They're not sweeping through neighborhoods. They're not looking for birthright people. They're going after the criminals right now, and they got more of that than I think they can do in 4 years. Are you okay with them going after the criminals?
No, because that's unconstitutional.
Okay, so, you're going to have to help me out on that. Feeling the pinch of medication shortages and rising prices? Well, you're not alone. When the pharmacy shelves are empty, it's a scary place to be. Benjamin Franklin said it best. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Your health is too important to leave to chance. That's why you need Jace Case. Jace Case is your lifesaver, an emergency supply of essential prescription medications that you order before you need them. When life throws a curveball, be it supply chain hiccups, natural disasters, or a closed doctor's office, you won't be left scrambling. Having these vital medications on hand gives you control over your health. In today's unpredictable world, that peace of mind is priceless. Take control. Be prepared with Jace Case. Just go to jace.com and enter promo PHIL at checkout. That's promo code PHIL at jase.com to have the right meds on hand the moment you need them. $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today. First off, are you guys okay with them going after the criminals? Yes. Okay, because I've been with them when they arrested drug dealing, arm dealing criminals. Would you like us to get those guys arrested and then turn them loose?
If they're a birthright citizen, they should go through the exact legal process that any American would go through.
No, I'm not saying birthright citizen. I don't care if they're Irish. It wouldn't make any difference to me, but if they're illegal aliens that are in this country and they're violent criminals, you want them taken off the street, right?
Yes.
It doesn't matter if they're blonde and blue-eyed, you want them off the street, but certainly if they're illegal aliens, you have no problem with them being targeted.
Yes, I have no problem with that. I don't know how the conversation took that turn.
Well, I changed the subject.
Okay.
I broadened the subject to say beyond, you covered birthright citizens, and then I used you as a prop to go to some other issues.
Yes.
Since you were standing up. Now, I just wanted to ask a broader question. but if they're birthright citizens, you think they should be tried and imprisoned in the U.S.?
Yes, I believe we should follow the Constitution.
Yeah, okay. And I don't think that's constitutional, but nonetheless.
Birthright citizenry is.
Well,
That's not a gray area.
where they go to prison, as long as they go to prison, I don't care, as long as if they're taken off the street.
And I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
So just to be clear, birthright citizens want them to stay here. The great majority of Americans agree with that. If they commit a crime, they go to prison, but they stay here. But if they're not born here, they're not citizens, and they're criminals, all of you are saying, okay, let's send them back. Once, by the way, they've served their time, because they should get justice right here in America, and then you send them back. So do you agree with all that?
Yes.
Right. So I think, Dr. Phil, where the rubber hits the road is what happens once we get past the criminals who are undocumented immigrants?
Well, that's what I was saying. I think there's a lot to be done on that. And then okay, thank you. I didn't want to make you just stand there the whole time. You got a chair, you can sit down. Okay. What do you wish the president and this administration would focus on more than they are so far? Is there something they haven't gotten to yet?
Cutting the Pentagon?
Cutting the Pentagon. Okay. Yes, ma'am. We'll talk about that too. Say again?
Sarah, working with Pharma to reduce the prices of drugs. I work in the I work in a PBM, and we have to negotiate those rates with Pharma. And if Pharma keeps having the advantage and gets to call what the price is, then we have no chance here.
Do you think RFK Jr. is going to focus on that?
Yes, I do. I hope so.
Yeah, he's going to join us tonight via
yeah.
Zoom also, and
Good.
I've talked to him a lot, and he's going to make it where you can negotiate prices with Big Pharma, which is spooky.
That was Big Pharma.
Yeah.
More powerful than you realize.
But yeah, does everybody agree that you should be able to negotiate pharmaceutical prices? Everybody agree with that? Raise your hand real high. Okay. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. I mean, this is a free market, right? You should be able to negotiate Big Pharma.
Yeah, listen, that's where I would tell my friends on the left, if they do that and they negotiate drug prices, then they deserve a tremendous amount of credit. Because, you know, Democratic and Republican presidents, including Trump in his first term, promised to do it and didn't do it. Including Obama, he promised to do it and didn't do it. So if they promise to do it and they do it, then I'll give them all the credit in the world, but they actually got to do it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And the fact that we're paying more for health care and delivering the lowest quality health care out of developed countries is an embarrassment. I mean, it's a shame. You know, there are 50 countries in the world where a mother has a better chance of surviving childbirth than in America. There are 50 countries where the baby has a better chance of surviving than in America. That is shameful. Absolutely shameful. And then we pay more for we pay more for pharmaceuticals than, I mean, you can go to Detroit and drive across one bridge and pay a tenth for something that you get in America. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
We're having this trade war with Canada. Can we just solve it by them sending the cheap drugs to us? Right? And by the way, they're the same exact drugs. They're not any cheaper. They just cost less, right? They're the same drugs. Guys, again, the pharmaceutical companies in this country have a strangle lock in Washington. Washington is occupied by all these corporate donors. And so to the point that Dr. Phil was making, what kind of capitalism is this where you can't negotiate drug prices? I mean, I've never heard of this in a free market where the guys selling you the product say you have to pay this. It's unheard of. The only reason that they're doing this is crony capitalism. So where they pay off the politicians. And so why didn't Obama do it and why didn't Trump do it in his first term? They go to Congress, even if they mean well, they go to Congress and almost everybody in Congress is bought. They get so much money from the drug companies, And that's what we got to shine a spotlight on. To your point, like, yes, we've got to bring us together. We've got to bring us together, but sometimes we got to do it in an aggressive way. Which one of you guys are all taking money from Pharma, and which one of you are blocking capitalism and the free market and keeping drug prices so high we can't afford them? And people are dying because of that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. It's shameful. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Stand up. We'll bring you a microphone. Say your first name.
Hi, my name is Valerie. I think that if we started with term limits, we wouldn't have lifelong politicians. That then we wouldn't have all of these companies, including the pharmaceuticals, in the politicians' pockets. So if we started with that, we can start to weed some of the corruption out. We also need to get all of the pharmaceuticals off of TV. They do not need to be every other commercial. They don't need to be on the Super Bowl. And that's a good start. But I agree, and I'm a huge Trump fan, but I really think that that is the way to get rid of the corruption with the pharmaceutical.
That would certainly help. How many agree with that? If we had term limits where people couldn't get bought forever? Yeah, okay.
So I'll just say something real quick about that. If you're wondering why all of our politicians are so old, like Mitch McConnell freezes in a press conference, you know, Biden's brain fell out in a debate, right? So, but Pelosi, all these guys so old, because the donors get a return on investment, and they know that's stable. Whenever I go back to Biden and McConnell, I'm going to get my money's worth. And so that's why they keep buying them over and over and over again. That's why they're so old. So I hear you on term limits. I would say also money out of politics. I mean, that's the biggest thing there is. That's the number one way that they purchase these politicians.
See, I have a theory, and I wonder how you guys feel about this. And I'm going to ask you that in just a minute, but I want to hear from you first. Say your first name. All right, Helen?
I think one of the problems is there's no kickbacks, there's no paying to aggressively teach healthy living, healthy eating, healthy habits. Pharmaceuticals depend upon us living unhealthy. If we lived healthy lifestyles, we wouldn't have to depend upon pharmaceuticals. And that's where we would be getting the prices down because there wouldn't be the need for them. Every doctor's, I'm on one prescription, I'm 76 years old. Okay. Now, I take supplements, I try to eat healthy, I try to live healthy. But the pharmaceuticals not making much money on me. And if that was taught from government level down, you know, that would be something that would get the pharmaceuticals in line because they would have to negotiate.
Yeah, good point. But I tell you what, if you go to an insurance company and say we want to teach stress management and healthy living, no, we don't want to talk prevention, even though it makes sense. Yes, ma'am. Stand up. We'll bring you a microphone.
Hi, my name is Marjorie, and I want to talk about the Doge. The money that we're just wasting, the money that's being stolen, the money that's being laundered. You know, everybody's screaming about what they're doing, but nobody is doing anything. How long are we going to let them rob the bank? And instead of us saying, yeah, let's find out who's robbing the bank, we yell at the people who caught the people who were robbing the bank. And that's what we're doing. You know, everybody's mad because they don't want Trump to be the one to find the people who are laundering money, stealing money, you know, all this kind of stuff. But nobody is doing anything about it. I'm concerned about Social Security. I'm concerned that they have all these people on the Social Security list, you know, that don't exist or that are dead or all this kind of stuff. We need to recover the money. But people are so concerned about who recovers. Democrats don't want him to get the credit for recovering the money. So they're yelling and screaming. It's like somebody's painting the wall and somebody's standing in the background saying, you missed the spot, you missed the spot. But you're not painting the wall. So we need somebody to recover this money. We're $37 trillion in debt. And we have money just going out the window, billions of dollars. We wouldn't need Tunnel to Towers. We wouldn't need Wounded Warriors project if the government would stop wasting the money and treat our soldiers like they treat people all over the world who do not deserve our tax money.
Yeah.
That's the real deal.
I agree.
That's the real deal.
I agree. And I have a theory. And I'll tell you my theory, and you can think about this and tell me if you agree. I have a theory because I've spent a lot of my career studying why people do what they do and don't do what they don't do. And think about that. If you figure out why people do what they do and don't do what they don't do, then you got a real leg up on the world. Seriously, think about that. If you understand motivation, why people do what they do, you got a real leg up. And my theory is this. We've got non-problem solvers cast in the role of solving problems. The people that we have in Washington, D.C. and other places charged with solving problems aren't motivated to solve the problems. That's not what they want to do. They don't want to solve the problems. They have a theory that, okay, if I solve this problem, I work myself out of a job. You know, Samuel L. Jackson, the actor, is a friend of mine, and he says, my theory is every time I start a movie, I'm working myself out of a job. And so I gotta have my agent have me 2 movies lined up before I start this one, and if he doesn't, I'm gonna fire his ass. Because every time I start, I'm working myself out of a job. I think these people think if I solve these problems, they don't need me anymore. They're not really, we got non-problem solvers in the role of solving problems. And that's where I think term limits could make sense. It's like, was it Gates that gave a bunch of money and said, this charity's gonna last 25 years or something, then I'm shutting it down. So if you think this is just gonna give everybody a job forever, it's not. This is over in 20 years or whatever it was he said. So you got X amount of time to use this money to fix these problems and then it's gone. That's what we've got to tell these people. You either fix these or we'll get somebody in here who will, because you ain't gonna be here forever. And that's a problem.
Let me build on that, because I agree with that completely. And then on top of that, guys, it requires a different skill set to get elected than to govern.
Oh,
right?
Does it ever?
Yeah, so the skill set to get elected is be a charmer, be a schmoozer, and that was in the past, a little bit still today, right? But once you get past the things that we all pay attention to, the presidential level, like we all see that. But the congressional level, we almost never see, right? And those guys are not even charming or schmoozers. 95% of the time, the person with more money wins. Doesn't matter if they're a Republican, doesn't matter if they're Democrat, liberal, conservative, nothing matters but the money 19 out of 20 times, right? So their skill set is collect money from donors, serve donors. When you go to govern, your skill set should be serve the voters. But we elected the wrong guys, because we elected the guys who want to serve the donors. That's why I say term limits, sure, but we've got to get big money out of politics. If we don't, they're going to be serving those guys forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, they're bought and paid for. Okay, I think we got time for one more, and then we'll switch over because they're starting to file in. But we're not going to let you miss anything. We got it on a clock, and we're going to switch in time, so don't worry about it.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Shakira, and I want to add to what you just said, because earlier when you asked how do we think it's going the first 45 days, and that's exactly what I was thinking about. It's going as expected in my eyes, because we know who we had 8 years ago. We know exactly what we were working with. And so it's going exactly as expected and then some. And so it's been prophetically spoken. We know exactly what was to come. And so unfortunately, we're dealing with the aftermath. And we have people in office, people that are working, that are not really for their own, that are not really for others, they're really for themselves. And so until people recognize that, hey, we need to be able to look out for others, we need to take a look at every view opposed to just throwing stuff out there. This is what we're working with.
Yeah, you know, you're so right, and you're saying the same things, Kira. there's a different skill set between getting elected and serving. But you have so many IOUs by the time you get in the job, it's like, whoa, I sold my soul to get the job, but now I feel like I need to do the job, but I sold my soul, because everybody that put up all that money, they're now sitting out in the waiting room saying, all right, Jack, I got you elected. Now it's your time to pay off. And it's tough. It's tough, but if you get the money out, but what you said is empirically true. Is there a race where the one that spent the least has won in the last 100 years?
Yes, it's 95% of the time the person with more money wins.
Who was it?
So I started a group called Justice Democrats, and almost all of them, and some of you might or might not like some of the folks in there, but AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, et cetera, but those folks had less money, and they won anyway. And by the way, the reason they had less money, again, you might disagree on some social issues, but they didn't take any corporate PAC money. So at least they're honest. So it's in the same Bernie Sanders wing, where at least we're being honest about where we're coming from, agree or disagree, right? But it's very hard to do.
But has there been a president that spent less money on a presidential election?
Donald Trump.
Well, okay, that's true, but he didn't have to buy media, because
That's exactly right,
He brought
yes.
the circus to town.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, the Democrats don't understand that. Try to be interesting, right? I mean, especially at the presidential level, where we're having still not a money battle, because Trump is winning with less money than Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris.
But more media.
But way more media. And so the Democrats keep, even to this day, they have this crazy idea that is like now leading within Democratic circles in Congress of let's just do nothing and wait for the Republicans to hurt themselves.
But what was that idiot?
My God, do something, be interesting, be exciting, fight for your voters.
What was that idiot drill we were watching today? They were doing, we were on the news, they were running that new ad campaign they had.
Oh, yeah.
But it's,
So they're talking about how they all have the same talking point. They got it from a Democratic consultant, and about how, oh, they're for their billionaire buddies and we're for you guys. Yes, but I wish you were, right? So like what the Democrats need to understand is your policy, in my opinion, your policies are pretty good on economic stuff, right? But you've got to actually do them. If you don't do them, you don't get any credit for them. So don't tell me what a Democratic consultant told you to say. I mean, you're talking about billionaire buddies. Brothers, you guys have billionaire buddies too. Who are you kidding? That is why the one thing that Joe Biden said that was fundamentally true was when he said to his donors, nothing will fundamentally change. And that's what this room is saying. No, we don't want that. We don't want the status quo. And then sometimes folks like Trump, they upset the status quo a little too much. A little too aggressively, a little wrong, in the wrong direction. But,
what'd you call it a minute ago? Crony capitalism?
yeah.
Is that your term?
No, I didn't invent it, but yeah, but it's also called corporatism and crony capitalism. That's when corporations capture the government and have the government do their bidding instead of our bidding.
Yeah. I wish you had said that first. I'd steal it from you. Because that's exactly what it is. It's crony capitalism. They're just paying off their cronies, and they have to do it. But what do you guys think about all the executive orders that were signed? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? If doing the things he did by executive order was a good thing to break the stalemate, raise your hand. If you think that's a good thing, raise your hand real high so the camera can see it, so we can kind of count them later. Okay, if you think, no, that's too much like being a king, raise your hand. That bothered some of you, but not too many. Well, you were okay with some of them.
Yeah, so I like the action, but some of the executive orders are crazy, like ending birthright citizenship, things that they ran on inflation, they ran on controlling the border. So when they go to do that, most people are going to agree that's what they voted for. But when they start taking away rights through executive orders, it's too much.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to talk about later is that the crisis has moved from the border to inland with slaves. So we'll talk about that when we get back. So Congress is, Trump's address to Congress is about to begin. So let's tune in.